Hi, everyone. This is Jose Palomino with another episode of the Revenue Throughput Podcast. Our guest today is Vicki O'Niell of VickiO'Niell.com. And Vicki is an expert on how to leverage video. And by this, I mean everyday, low cost, using your phone video to advance your business communications. It's practical, it's pithy, it's powerful. So listen in as we welcome Vicki to our show. Well, welcome, Vicki, to the Revenue Throughput Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
No, great. And I know some of the things that you specialize in, I think, will be of particular interest to our audience. But in your own words, what do you do and who do you do it for primarily?
I help B2B entrepreneurs and small business owners with their content strategy, primarily focusing in on video as a starting point, because that can be used in so many different ways that it's a great place to start and help them create more engagement with their ideal customers.
Well, now I love that topic because it's something that I have found over especially in the last several years. A lot of business owners have a memory of having done a very expensive video project. You know, it's like the videographer and it was a big deal and so on. And so telling them that, look, even the big cool kid companies are doing like really fast video on phones and stuff like that. I mean, nicely produced is great, but they're taking advantage of video. So what are some of the opportunities for, let's say, a mid-market B2B company? What opportunities are they missing out on by not using video?
Well, today people are so much more accepting of just using our mobile phones for creating video because you've got Instagram stories, you've got LinkedIn stories, you've got Facebook, you've got live streaming. So the thought process of needing to have like an actual produced video, commercial quality, very expensive video is very much outdated. Those are nice. If you're trying to put a commercial on the Super Bowl, perhaps, but when it comes to everyday and especially for small businesses, mid-market small businesses, just being on video and letting their ideal customers and prospects and existing customers actually see them as they are is a lot more relatable. And it's more convenient too, because we're always carrying our phone around with us.
Mm-hmm.
And today's phones have such high quality that just using a mobile device for creating video it's easy, and it's really what people prefer just because it's more relatable.
And today's phones, as you pointed out, technologically are the equal of like high-end gear of 10 years ago.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, in some cases, even surpassing some of the stuff that was even available 5 years ago. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I actually use my mobile phone because the camera on my mobile phone is actually better than my laptop.
Okay.
And this is actually better than some cameras out there too. So I literally just use my phone for the weekly videos I do on my YouTube channel.
Okay, wow. Well, but it's interesting, right? So let's say the tools are there, and in much the same way as, Microsoft Word exists, it doesn't make us all into writers, okay? Or, doesn't make us produce worthwhile content. So what are some principles that you see that somebody who says, okay, I don't want to make this I'm not trying to be Steven Spielberg, but I'd like to not embarrass myself. What are some like 2 or 3 keys to not embarrass yourself as you start producing content and putting it out there?
That's a great question. I don't think anybody's ever asked me that before. So to not embarrass yourself, you can do live streaming, which sounds really scary to people, but it's not anything that you have to edit. So you can just go on camera, be live, and you can actually engage your audience more and even have a guest host or a host on your show, which actually eases a lot of that anxiety and helps you kind of stay focused. And if you're answering questions from people who are participating, then that helps you be more yourself. So you're going to make fewer mistakes most likely, but we're also very human. So there is no such thing as perfection. People understand that even if you're a first timer, you're just starting out on video, that there are going to be mistakes and it's not going to be the super quality overproduced video. So the first thing is just to get started and, press record, and you don't even have to share it with anybody. But if you want to start sharing it with people, then just, press record, send it to a few select people that you trust and are going to give you honest feedback and who are actually going to help you grow and encourage you to keep moving forward with your video content.
Wow. So I'm trying to visualize a few of the owners I've worked with over the years, right? And I'm thinking, boy, I'm not sure I'm ready for my close-up, right, so to speak. So, and they're just a little bit nervous as to what they would actually say. In other words, am I really that interesting? Would people really want to know what I have to say about this, that, or the other thing? So how would somebody get started? I mean, you suggested like just press play, record, try it. But I'm thinking more in terms of like, what am I trying to put out there?
Yeah. So as a business owner, it may seem a little bit more challenging just because you typically wouldn't think that a business owner is going to be on camera and just like walking around or doing anything. So two things, they can either be on camera or off camera. So let's just say they don't want to be on camera. They can be off camera and almost just use their voice to do a walk through the office. That's a great place for anybody to start. Even in your home office, during COVID, you could still do, a scan of here's my office and make it a 2-minute video just to get started. From a business owner perspective too, people want to know about people. So it's not just talking about your business and your products and your solutions and your pricing. It's really talking about the stories that got you started in your business and why you choose to continue being in your business and serving the clients that you do. And when that passion comes through, it's amazing I'm getting chills thinking about it because I've seen it happen before, that people, they get passionate about their stories and they don't think about sharing those on camera. They just, they think about, they're so busy with everything else that's going on day to day that they don't think about that. And that's the kind of stuff that people want to relate to. So if you're going to pick up the phone, you're going to start creating videos and you're like, I don't know what to say. Think of the story that got you started with your business and just share it. People love to hear it.
Yeah, and some of my our best episodes in our podcast has been when we've interviewed business owners, and I go down that road. I say, well, why did you start the business? What led you to it? And then 20 minutes later, we're still into that story, and it's a great story, and it's life, and it's stuff happened, and they thought they were going to the left, and they ended up going to the right. Stuff like that is very interesting and very captivating as a human being.
Yeah, exactly. And that type of story too, especially ones that are longer like that, you can actually, if you want to start creating videos, it could be created into different videos too. You could actually create a series, maybe it's a 3-part video series talking about how the owner got started, especially if it's something that you wouldn't guess. Okay. You're like, it just doesn't seem like how they would have gotten started. They might have had an interesting pivot. Those are really cool. And then you're creating intrigue too along the way, and people are more interested and they'll want to subscribe or continue listening and really hear, what that story is.
And part of that too is when it pivots to the story about about their company, a lot of owners are very proud of the culture they've built, about what matters to them, the values they have, and you get them going on that, and they'll tell you all about it, and it's actually very intentional. And people who aren't in business or who've never owned a business, who aren't really in that orbit, sometimes don't realize just how personal businesses are to business owners. Mm-hmm. It really matters.
And you just touched on other topics that they could talk about too. And I think that's the key, is that a lot of people, including business owners, get caught up in I don't know what I'm going to talk about. But starting with how you got your business started, what you're passionate about, what your values are, what the pivot was, what's the most interesting thing that keeps you going, what gets you out of bed in the morning. Those could all be topics that you talk about on your starting, getting down your video strategy journey. But then once you start talking, then other ideas start popping up, and then you start realizing that you're creating this entire video journey that you had no idea that you were going on, but you're now creating it because it's something you're truly passionate and interested in talking about.
Hey, pardon the interruption. It'll just be a beat. We want to tell you about something that's really exciting, and it might be very exciting to you if you're the owner, CEO, leader of a B2B company, roughly with $2 to $20 million in revenue, and you feel a little bit stuck. You know what I mean? Sales are a little flat, maybe even declining, challenged. Margins are being squeezed. Sales cycles seem to be lengthening, and lead flow is uncertain. We've designed a program based on over a dozen years of us doing exactly this for many B2B companies. It's called the Competitive Edge Program, and you can learn more about it at valueprop.com/edge. Tells you all about the program. It's a 90-day program, really focused on helping you sharpen your value proposition, aligning your value delivery, making sure your marketing program is doing what it has to do if you're in B2B, which is generate opportunities, and make sure your sales process is tight so that you can convert those opportunities into sales. So with that note, let's get back to an exciting episode of the Revenue Throughput Podcast. Wow. So Vicki, where does a professional video piece fit into this strategy? I mean, so far we talked a little bit about like a DIY approach, which could be very empowering. So that says I could create a lot of video, I could do different videos, I could try things out. And a lot of times people don't realize, like, you could put it up on YouTube and take it down if you don't like it. You know, you're allowed. But where does a professional piece fit in? What kind of businesses benefit from, you know what, let's put some budget aside. Let's hire a real video team. Let's get something storyboarded or whatever. Where do you see that fitting best?
I think it can fit in with any type of business that's got the budget, because if you're going to hire a professional video editor, it is going to cost more money than if you hired somebody in the office to actually do it. But if you're wanting to really tell a story and you're involved and you've got the budget and you want to showcase a new initiative or a new product that you're launching and like kind of the behind the scenes and what led up to it, and you're getting the entire team involved in that conversation or that story, those are great videos to put together, because it's not something that's time sensitive, it's actually timeless. And when people can see what goes into even a behind the scenes of what led you up to this initial launch or this big event that you're putting on for the first time, or a 10-year anniversary, or, you know, an event that you had for your, you know, your company. It could be any one of those things. It really depends on the type of business and whether or not they're, you know, digital only, they could have services only, or they could have physical products that they sell that they actually manufacture in a facility. So there's different ways that you can approach it. So it really depends on their individual niche, I guess, but it's possible for any business.
Well, so to that end, I'd like to get into, and Vicki, never to put you on the spot, you don't have to name names, but I'm curious if maybe you can tell us a little, you know, anecdotal story of somebody who wasn't thinking video was strategic and they started doing it and some of the results they experienced.
Yeah, so I've got two people. One is a more physical product, and it was a company I was working with, and they just wanted a digital strategy, but they didn't know what they wanted. And it's a company that sells, they're like printers, and so it's twofold. They're printers, but they also develop code for the labels that they sell and print out.
Okay.
So a lot of different areas that they specialize in. And they hadn't thought about doing video. And they had 6 people in their office. Everybody's wearing different hats. And they just didn't know how that was going to work. So I approached them with the thought of, well, why don't we talk about like what actually goes into the process for you to work with a client? And let's see what that looks like. You know, if somebody approaches you and they need this printer, and they need custom coding for labels in order to print it off on their special branded labels, what does that look like for them? So they started talking about that process. And of course, we took out the stuff that was proprietary to them and they didn't want, you know, competitors finding out about. But then we ended up doing interviews with different people in the office that were involved in that process. And you could really see the passion coming through when they were talking about their part of it. And from an outsider, you could see the pieces coming together too, as to how it actually works. And that's important to a prospect or a client, because they want to see, you know, what am I getting myself into? If I can hear like what that is, then it's going to create more trust in that process and knowing that they're going to get what they're actually asking for. So it was pretty impressive to see that they were like, okay, at first hesitant about doing it, but then when you talk them through that process, they were very interested and they loved the final output. So that was good. Yeah.
Well, and you know, it was getting them to talk about stuff they're already excited about. So it's not like they have to, it's not some unnatural act to talk about stuff, you know, about philosophy or something. They're talking about stuff they're excited, they would love to talk about all day if they could.
Yes.
Wow.
Exactly.
And so that's a case where they sell a physical product, and the big challenge there is communicating in a way to a prospect how it would be like to work with us, what we do for you. And then instead of telling them with more words, even words and pictures, is like, let's show them.
Yes, exactly.
That's brilliant. Love it.
It's awesome. Yeah.
Okay. And you mentioned you had a second example, if I can.
Yeah. So this is a second example, and it's actually a recent example. And it was somebody who went through my 30-day video boot camp. And she's an older person that she's been doing this for years, but she's a dog trainer. And in person, but then she moved it online and she's creating a course, she's writing a book. And she's like, Vicki, I just didn't know what I was getting into. She's like, I knew I wanted to do video, but I had no idea like where to start. So she was one of those people that just kind of got stuck and just really
Hmm.
didn't know what she needed to do. And she didn't know me from Adam. She's like, Vicki, I typically wouldn't like move forward with that, but she heard me talking about my process and my passion. And she's just like, all right, I'm going to do it. And I'm like, really? That's awesome. And it was a great experience for her because she actually took action. She was able to press record. We came up with a plan. We walked through that process. And at the end, she was like, oh my gosh, I never would have been able to do this myself. So it was good to see someone who was stuck, and then you kind of help them through that process and to see how relieved they are at the end that not only did they take action, but now they have a plan and they've started to create momentum and they can move forward. So it was a great experience for her, but more so for me because I was able to help her do that.
Well, that was an empowerment moment, right? You can actually show somebody how to do, the old adage of giving a person a fish versus showing them how to fish.
Yes.
That's great. So Vicky, I also want to make sure that, and we spend a lot of time on video because I think that's an area that is fresh and new and a little bit fuzzy for people.
Mm-hmm.
But you do more than video. You do digital marketing strategies and so on. So if you could just speak a little bit to how, you tip when you start working with a business owner or leadership team, trying to figure out what they need to do. It may not be that they may not have a problem with lack of video, but it may be something else in their strategy. What do you zero in on there?
It really depends on what they are looking for in their business. And the biggest thing that I've found is that they want to connect with more people on a broader scale. They don't know how to. And when you start looking at the video statistics of 85% of people are referring to video, or 93% of viewers of videos will purchase a brand later once they've watched a video. When you start looking at those types of statistics and you share that with them, they see the value there.
Hmm.
And then when you look at what they're trying to accomplish, if they want to increase sales, if they want to decrease customer churn, if they want to, whatever that goal is, there's a way to connect the dots between video and their goal. It helps increase awareness. People are more attracted to a video. They'll click on it, they'll watch it more so than they will a blog post. But then you have to be very cognizant of who your ideal customer is too, as to whether or not they want to read, listen, or watch.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of, it depends, but through those conversations, it will help me better help them knowing what their goals are, and then like where their customers spend time and how they best engage with information or learn information in order to find them.
So I had a client that sells a very sophisticated piece of equipment. It's a $250,000 piece of equipment when they get a sale.
Mm-hmm.
And they started putting on videos of the machine in operation. And it opened up a lot of conversations for them. Like they actually got inquiries as a result. And again, if you're flipping them at $250,000 a pop, you don't need but so many before it's real money, right?
Yeah.
But they still also needed a good website. They needed good collateral material because engineers were looking at this and they need to see specifications and so on. So do you find that some in the pure B2B space not only need the video assets but also need some PDFs and some web assets as well? And how do you synchronize those things together so they tell us, a single story?
Yeah, it's looking at the customer journey and understanding where they start and then reverse engineering that process to understand what needs to happen at each one of those steps and how you can create a call to action that's going to help them take that micro yes to that next step with you and keep them on that buyer's journey until they're ready to buy. So along that journey, it could be initially they saw a post on Twitter and that was text, but it had a link and they're like, hey, let's check this out. I like the message. The link takes them to YouTube. Oh, okay. The YouTube video says, hey, click the link below and download this document. Now I've got a PDF document, but now they're also on the email list. Now the communication can continue on the email list. So there's understanding where you can find them initially and then reverse engineering that through that process. And of course, it all comes down to your marketing and your messaging and your call to action and
Hmm.
your engagement. And all this.
Yeah, there's a few
Um,
other pieces there.
yeah, all the pieces. So it's really understanding that entire process and really diving into what's going to work the best for that particular client.
Well, and I love, and again, it's a cornerstone thing that you have to take into account, the buyer's journey. But I love calling it out that way, the way you just did, because traditional sales and marketing for a long time in B2B was really sales centric. It's what you do. You pound into the market, you push in a lot of martial terms and sports metaphors and so on. But the reality is you can't make somebody spend $100,000 on a piece of equipment or on a professional service. They're either in the market to buy in the category or they aren't. Mm-hmm. Very rarely can you turn somebody who wasn't thinking about buying in your category and say, oh, my goodness, I should spend $100,000 on that. That's not typically how it works. And in fact, you don't need it because there's so many people looking probably in your category. You just have to find them with the right kind of content and as you put it, right where it fits in the journey.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I noticed on your website, I just want you to speak to it a little bit, is this, and you mentioned it, the boot camp.
Yeah.
That sounded very intriguing. Can you just elaborate on that a little bit? That might be very helpful to our listeners as well.
Yeah. So it's I started off with a 1-hour masterclass that talked about, and it's a free masterclass that talks about the importance of video. And I talk about the 4 pillars that are needed for creating a solid foundation to build your video strategy on. The 30-day video boot camp is an actual action plan. So every day there's a video that gives you a micro step of something you need to do to take action and moving forward with your video. So it's not overwhelming. The feedback I've had is that it's great pace because it's very little things. Like one day literally is to get out your phone, don't share your video with anybody, just press record, and that's it. That's your only homework.
Cross that line, right?
And it really is. Sometimes it's just, I tell people sometimes, like if you're trying to, lose weight, some people go to the excessive and say, I'm going to go work out 7 days a week and I'm going to cut out all my carbs and no more junk food. And you're like, wait, what? I mean, you're setting yourself up to fail.
Right. No bread ever again.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's a great goal, but let's take a step back.
Right. That's great.
So when you break it up into smaller things, even when you're trying to lose weight, it's like, just just cut out one thing per day and see how it is. When you set smaller goals and you accomplish them, it creates energy. And then you create excitement for saying, hey, if I can do this today, I can do it again tomorrow. So you're creating that momentum a little bit at a time, and then you're setting them up to succeed instead of setting them up to fail. So I had a lot of fun creating it, and it's had great reviews, great feedback, and I'm super excited to keep it going.
Okay, great. Well, Vicki, we are right about out of time for this interview. So thank you so much for sharing with our folks. I know a lot of what you laid out has got to be motivational. And, we do a lot of video, but it made me think, where else can I do video? What other things can I do for me? So I'm very excited about that. And if somebody listening right now to this podcast said, wow, this sounds like something I need to learn more about, where should they go to learn more about what you do, about you, how to connect with you, and so on?
They can go to my website, which is VickiO'Niell.com, VickiOniell.com. And then I actually have a link or a button at the top of the website that has a link to the 1-hour free masterclass that they can watch, and then that'll connect them to the 30-day video bootcamp.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Vicki O'Niell, for being here on the Revenue Throughput Podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It was awesome. And thanks for the great questions.
Hey, thanks for listening to another episode of the Revenue Throughput Podcast. If you like this episode and if you like the series, make sure you subscribe below. And also, if you liked it, please do review it. When people are looking for something exciting to listen to, especially the kind of content we're bringing, which is practical insights for B2B companies, this is a place and a free resource that they can take advantage of. Let them know about it with your review. So subscribe, review, enjoy. Thanks again.